I feel her hands, and she was already cold. So it's like, man, my baby's gone.
Mia Campos' father, the same man who found the pregnant 16-year-old murdered less than a mile from her home, is now begging that her accused murderer not be released from jail.
That's all I can ask you to reconciliation with them for the safety of my family and my daughter.
Even with that emotional plea, the teenager's alleged murderer has been released from custody.
I hereby grant bond in the amount of $50,000.
Before we get into the court hearing, here's some background on Mia's case. At the time of her death, she was 16 years old and living with her family in Loganville, Georgia. She was also 7 months pregnant at the time, and while the pregnancy came as a surprise for the Campos family, they supported her, and she was excited too. She'd already planned to name her future son Sebastian. Here's Edward Campos and Miriam Zarate. They're Mia's parents, who I spoke with earlier in the summer.
Well, we found out when she was pregnant. My wife, she was the one, she got pregnant. First, we was kind of upset because, 15 years old, it's like, it's normal. It's not normal for kids, to get pregnant at that age. But I was angry. I was upset. But 2 months later, when I see the belly, is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, I just fell in love with my grandchild, and I told her, I mean, you know what, Mija, you got our support like a parents, you got 100% support, from your mom and myself. And it's like, don't worry about it. I say, you don't need anything, nobody, you don't need anything else from nobody. I said, you be good. Everything is good. Everything's going to be fine.
This brings us to July 14th. During the day, Mia was out shopping with her mom, but late that evening, she left home once again.
That's when she went out the door. It was around 10:30 at night. Why? I still don't got that picture right. Why she left from our house at that time? And I mean, the only thing I can think that Jesus called Mia to, hey, I meet you here. And because if you can see on the camera, Mia leads to the house like she was happy. She was not upset.
Mia's family shared this ring video with me, the last known video of Mia. It shows her leaving the house and everything seems normal. After Mia didn't return home, her parents started to worry and used an app on her cell phone to track her down.
She's just right here around the corner at my house. So it's like I told my wife, and then I said, you know what, pues let's go look for it. And as soon as we turned to the street, I mean, I didn't see no cars, and it's like, well, but it's not in on the streets. It's like more farther to the inn. So that's when we start getting inside to look for it. But the thing is, when I went to the left side, and Mia, she was turning to the right side, and that's when we found her.
There, less than a mile from their family home, Mia's father found her lifeless body in the woods. Both she and her unborn son had been murdered.
Well, what my reaction was when I saw her on the woods, she was laid down, with her back, and when I saw her face, she was twist to the left side, but it was like on the ground. So when I saw her, it's like, Mia, what's wrong? What's wrong? Wake up. And that's when I grabbed her, her head, and I turned around real slow, and I started, doing CPR, but it was too late. She was already passed away. Because, and then I put, the fingers on her neck. I didn't see no pulse. And somehow I kind of heart hurt, and I feel her hands, and she was already cold. So it's like, man, my baby's gone. My first reaction is like, God, I put her in your hands. That was my first reaction because I knew she was already gone. And it was, I can imagine. I still got her picture when I found her. And it hurts. It was my baby. It was the last. I got five, and she was the baby.
Did it go through your mind right away that Mia had been attacked or murdered, or did you think, oh, maybe there's some sort of medical issue here, that it wasn't foul play?
No, no, because when I saw her, I kind of knew that she got killed. I mean, you can tell right away because Mia, that was nothing wrong with her. I mean, her health, it was 100%. That was nothing wrong with her. So when I saw her, it's like, man, they killed my baby.
But the investigation soon pointed in the direction of 17-year-old Jesus Monroy, the father of Mia's child. Did you ever meet him and talk with him?
Yes, yes. When I found out when Mia she was pregnant, we had to go and talk to the parents to say, hey, pues, what are you gonna do now since my daughter's pregnant, because your son, and they said, well, according to his father, say, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and take care of everything. You don't have to worry about it. I'm gonna go ahead and take care of the doctor's bills. But it was just only on the beginning. After a while, I I didn't talk to them. They didn't even come to the house to say, hey, how's Mia doing? He never comes around. So for me, they didn't have no relationship at all.
Monroy was arrested in the days after Mia's murder and initially charged with providing false statements to police about the case. Then, more than a week after Mia's death, Monroy was charged in her murder. He now faces charges of malice murder, felony murder, feticide, and aggravated assault. He's been held in the Gwinnett County Jail since those charges came down, but all that changed just last week at a bond hearing. Before Monroy's defense presented anything, the case's judge heard a plea from Mia's father.
And just I'm here to represent my daughter. And I beg you to reconciliation the bond, because I'm afraid that, if you put a bond on him, he might run to Mexico or Texas, because, you can see to my left, you can see to my right that the people we got. And that's all I can ask you to reconciliation the bond for the sake of my family and my daughter.
But Monroy had family members to speak on his behalf, too.
Mr. Monroy, would you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will give before the court today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
All right, thank you, sir. If you would, tell the judge your name.
My name is Mia Monroy.
And how are you related to the defendant, Jesus Monroy?
He is my brother.
I would like for you to tell the court where your brother, Jesus Monroy, lived prior to his arrest.
He lived off of 2899 Monroy Road, Snowville, Georgia.
All right. Is that in Gwinnett County?
Yes.
All right. And who lives at that home?
At the home is my parents, me personally, and 3 other siblings.
Okay. So your parents, who are your parents?
Jesus Monroy and Juan Valdez.
All right. And you also have 3 siblings apart from Jesus,
yes,
that live there as well.
Yes.
All right. And how old is everybody, the siblings there in the house?
The oldest one apart from me is 17, Omar Monroy. Following that is a 14-year-old, Janique Monroy. And following that is 7-year-old, Diego Monroy.
All right. And if you would, because you've said their names, if you could spell those just for the court reporter, make sure she gets it down right.
The 17-year-old is O-M-A-R Monroy. And the 14-year-old Yannick is Y-A-N-I-K Monroy.
Okay. And you said Diego?
Diego.
Okay. And
it's T-H-I-A-G.
Okay. Thank you. How long has your family lived at that property?
Approximately 7, 8 years.
Okay. And how long have y'all lived in Gwinnett County?
To the top of my head, 15 years.
Okay.
Off the top of my head, I can't remember.
I understand. Did Jesus grow up here in Gwinnett County?
Half his life.
Half of his life?
Yeah.
Okay, I understand. You go to high school in Gwinnett County?
Yes.
Where do you go to high school at?
South Gwinnett High School.
Okay. And then do y'all have, you talked about your immediate family that lives here in Gwinnett. Do you have other family that lives around the area?
Around the area, North Carolina, but we don't interact too much.
Okay, I understand. Do you have, what does Jesus do for work?
Landscaping.
All right. And who does he work for?
My father.
All right.
Jesus Monroy.
All right. So does your father own a landscaping company?
Yes.
All right. And Jesus works for your family?
Yes.
And does he do anything else for work?
He's an electrician during the winter, since it's slow season for landscaping.
Okay. And in a given week, how much work does he do?
Hours or?
Yeah. Is he working full time?
Yeah, full time.
The defense began to build a case that Monroy had no criminal history or history of violence.
That you're aware of, has your brother, Jesus, ever been arrested before?
Never.
Has he ever been in any kind of trouble before?
Never.
There are some factors that the court has to consider in deciding whether to give him a bond. One of those, you probably heard some argument here in the court about already, is whether or not your brother is a danger to the community. Let me ask you, have you ever seen your brother act in any way that you would consider to be dangerous to the community?
Not at all.
Have you ever seen him be violent towards anyone?
No.
One of the other factors is whether or not he is likely a significant risk to commit other felonies. He's charged with some, but if he got out, whether he would commit other felonies. Have you ever known your brother to commit any crime?
No.
Ever commit any felony?
Never.
Another factor is whether or not, and perhaps the main factor, is whether or not he is going to appear here in this court when he is required to do so by the judge.
We'll make sure he appears.
All right, you'll make sure. But let me ask you another question. Have you ever heard your brother talk about, in any way, his desire to, if he ever got in trouble, he was going to run?
No.
Since he's been in custody, have you talked to him?
I text him here and there.
Okay, through the jail thing?
Yeah.
Okay. Has he ever said anything to you about, if I get a bond, I'm out of here, I'm leaving and going to another country or anywhere else?
No, he has not.
So after wrapping up with the testimony of Monroy's brother, here's what the defense did next.
I do have what I've prepared, titled here, Letters of Support, that I'd like to submit to the court. These are from family members and friends who are, as the state has said, are not in Georgia, but wanted to support my client and wrote letters. I provided them to the state.
Is it marked as an exhibit?
I can mark it as exhibit, Judge. I have not yet.
Okay, we'll do that. Any objection or reviewing the letters before ruling?
Yes, Your Honor, we did object and told Mr. Delphine we would be objecting in the email when he sent them.
And
I will be reviewing them over objection and just bring them forward.
And Judge, for the record, in this packet there are 13 letters. On the second page I've included an index of who wrote what letter, and they're numbered there for the court's review.
And then came the defense's argument.
Your Honor, I filed a motion for bond in this case. I will note that there are, I think, a total of 5 warrants. Procedurally, in timing, I guess the first warrant, which was for false statements, was taken out July 17th. He was interviewed on the evening of July 16th while at the Gwinnett County Police Department, where he voluntarily came. He was not in custody at that time, or at least under a formal arrest. He came voluntarily because Detective Ariaza with the Gwinnett County Police Department asked him to. He was interviewed. Detective Ariaza believed that he wasn't being truthful, and he was arrested on false statements at that time. It was about 6 days later when Detective Ariaza then took out the additional warrants for malice murder, felony murder, feticide, and aggravated assault. He has been held continuously, though, since July 17th of 2024. I want to start with, and I won't read my motion, but one particular cite from my motion, which is that the defendant's guilt or innocence of the underlying charge is not an issue at the bail hearing, especially since the defendant enters the proceeding cloaked with a presumption of innocence. That is my client as he sits here today. A presumption of innocence. He is not guilty, has committed no offenses, and has never committed any offenses before this. This is a young man who enters this court and in front of you with absolutely no criminal history whatsoever. He is 20 years old. He is a little, as we've been investigating this case and looking through it, honestly, Judge, we're quite taken aback a little bit about the sufficiency of the state's evidence. We had a preliminary hearing. I'm not rehashing that. And really, guilt or innocence is not a question for this court in establishing bond. Those are mere allegations. There is no physical evidence whatsoever. There is no camera footage that they've recovered. There is no DNA. There are no witnesses. There is no video. There is no anything else tying my client to this. More importantly, my client told them in the interview that there were cameras around his house and that they should go check them to verify his alibi. Detective Ariaza testified at the preliminary hearing that my client's phone was pinging in the woods at 11:09 p.m. Well, I did what the state did not do, which is go and get the video footage. And at that time, my client is on camera in his own home, not 7 miles away at the murder scene. Ms. Feitnagar is asking this court to deny bond because she believes my client is a danger to the community. And her belief is, I guess, based on the nature of the case, that this is a heinous act for which they cannot really tie my client to. And he is innocent until they prove him guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. That if he's willing to do this to the pregnant 16-year-old mother of his child, what could he possibly do to anybody else? Well, his history in life establishes what he's willing to do, which is nothing. He's never been involved in a fight. He's never been arrested. He's never been violent. He's never done any of those things that would indicate future behavior. The nature of the charges aside, which are serious, and I feel for the Campos family losing their daughter in whatever way she was lost. But Judge, he's not a danger to the community simply by nature of the charges. If that were so, every murder case would automatically be denied bond, and the legislature could have wrote that in.
Here's how the prosecution responded.
The defendant was going to appointments, was helping provide for his unborn child, because when Mia's father and family found out she was pregnant, they wanted to press charges against the defendant because she was 15, or would have been 15 at the time of conception, while the defendant was 19, making that statutory rape charges. Mia begged her father not to press charges against the defendant, and he agreed as long as the defendant stepped up and took responsibility. As I stated, strangulation is an up-close, brutal way to commit murder. If somebody is willing to murder a 16-year-old heavily pregnant girl in that manner, he has a risk to the community. So the state would rely on its earlier argument and ask Your Honor to deny bond.
Just seconds later, the judge made her ruling.
I hereby grant bond in the amount of $50,000. Special conditions of bond include that he have a GPS ankle monitor in place within 24 hours of his release. He's to remain at his address, which is his home address, to be included in the order. And he's only to leave for medical appointments and appointments with his attorney. He's otherwise to be on site of the residence. He's got to have no contact whatsoever with any potential witnesses in this case. And the passport is to be surrendered to the district attorney before leaving court today.
In response to this, the Gwinnett County District Attorney's Office released a statement reading in part, quote, "It is disappointing that Judge Karen Byers chose to grant a bond to this defendant, and one less than even his defense attorney proposed. This beautiful young girl's child would have been born next month, and now both the mother and child are lost. We vehemently oppose this release." Monroy spent a month and a half in the Gwinnett County Jail before he was released on August 29th. Reporting for Law&Crime, I'm Gillespie.